Well, good morning from Cottage Farmstead. I'm Rebecca. Husband Nathan's walking around back there getting some different tools put together. And behind me you can see our woodshed. So we started building this. I don't think we filmed any of it. We may have taken a few pictures that I will insert here. So Farmer Nathan started building this back in the winter because we started heating our house with a wood stove. We installed the wood stove in late December and we're trying to collect enough firewood and we needed a place to keep it dry. Well, we started building this and we never quite got to getting it to the keeping it in the dry point. We got a little bit of the roof panels up, we got some metal that we were going to use, and then we just never got around to it, and then the weather warmed up, so it wasn't urgent. But we're getting into midsummer here and it's time for us to start filling up our woodshed so that we have plenty of wood to get started this late fall and winter when the cool temperatures start coming in. So today we are going to try and get the roof on, and then also we decided to add an addition onto it to have a little bit more space for kindling. So one of the fun things about this project is everything is reclaimed materials except for most of the screws. So on the bottom there we have a pallet that came with some of the building supplies we had when we were building our farmhouse last year. And then in the back, those are fence panels in the back there that came from a project that Farmer Nathan was working on back in the winter. Someone was replacing an old wood fence and, you know, a good chunk of it was rotten, but a fair amount of it we just cut off the rotten bit and that became the back of our shed here. And then for the walls, we've been using pallets that we've gotten from various places, and then other just random scraps of wood from the sawmill that we're using for the top part to put the roof on.
The extension, I found a pallet that had wider boards that didn't have as many large gaps. That's important just to prevent wood from falling down. Since this is wood, if it is in contact with the ground, it will degrade, so I ended up putting it up onto bricks, which also enabled me to level it fairly well. That'll just make it easier to stack it with woods, but then also make sure it's nice and sturdy. So hopefully it will prolong the life just having it off the ground, and we'll be able to attach it to the other structure very easily as well.
So the greenhouse that we started building earlier this year is actually turned into our solar kiln of sorts here. So we've been piling anything that we're planning on using for trim for our house, along with any of the sawmill cutoffs that we're going to be able to get at least some decent pieces of wood off of. And those are a lot of the pieces of wood that we've been using on building our woodshed. So this woodshed, while we enjoy using all the reclaimed materials, we know this is not going to be our permanent woodshed. There's other things that we want to spend money on here on the homestead first, like fencing primarily around the perimeter. So we are using scraps that'll last us for a few years, keep our firewood dry, and otherwise we don't have to spend a penny on it right now while we have other priorities.
Put a 2x here.
For fastening.
For fastening. So we'll put a 2x in the face of this. That way it gives us a cleat to attach the panel to. And we're going to make this 46 inches, I'm thinking. It's a bit cattywampus, but if we just make it 46, it'll be covered and have plenty of fastening for this.
So while we were installing this back piece, we had an idea. All of these cross braces for the fence would actually be perfect cleats for some shelving, because we wanted to have some shelving to make the kindling easier to stack and access, because if you pile it too high, it just collapses. So we're going to use each of these cleats here for our shelving. So since we decided to use the cross pieces on the fence panels as our cleats for shelving, We're going to use the exact same panel that we cut it out of as the side so that the cleats will line up for us already. They're already put together in the correct location. The only trick is we have to notch out at the bottom so that we can slide it in there, but otherwise it'll be pretty simple for putting our shelves in.
You want me to measure so it's in the center?
You can eyeball it into the center.
That's true.
At this one, I think eyeballing will be more accurate than anything. So Farmer Nathan's parents had an old above ground swimming pool that had seen better days, and so when they were taking it down, we offered to take the old thin sheet metal that went around the outside, because it was actually going to be the perfect width to be the roof across the top of our woodshed there to keep our wood dry. So earlier, Farmer Nathan had already added the roof support pieces on that side, and over here we just added 2 more. But before we put the roof on, we're actually going to adjust this side over here. When Farmer Nathan built it originally, I wasn't here to help hold things, and so that side is a little bit lower, so we're going to rearrange it so that we're able to stack the wood just a little bit higher in that bay.
So whenever you're dealing with a thin piece of metal or material such as the greenhouse plastic, you can't just put a screw into it, because when the wind catches it, it'll likely just pull and pop it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into strips and then use these strips to go on top of the metal to fasten the metal to our top roof purlins on the woodshed. What that does is it increases the surface area. This is going to be meaty enough and it's treated wood that way whenever wind catches, rather than relying just on a screw, you have wood in contact with the whole piece of metal. The last thing we have to do is trim the metal to the length that we need it. I'll probably overhang it just to cover this little gap in the wood panel here. But the right tool for that is called a nibbler. My dad has one that's battery operated, so it'd be very convenient for this particular project. So we'll just wait for that. Meanwhile, that's not going anywhere. We got the wood dry, so we should be good to start finishing the filling up process, and then we'll be ready for winter.
And there you have it, a totally upcycled, not perfectly level, but perfectly functional woodshed that'll keep our wood dry for the winter to come. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing how we turned pallets and old fence panels and some screws and an old pool siding into a woodshed. It gives you some inspiration that you don't have to spend a lot of money to get something that is functional for your homestead. We'll catch you next time.